This is Metabolic Mastery, a KORR Medical Technologies podcast dedicated to advancing knowledge and practice in metabolic testing. Welcome to Metabolic Mastery, brought to you by KORR Medical Technologies. I'm Dr. Marc Humbert. This is my co-host, Dr. Cameron Garber. And today we've got a special guest on. We've got Sean Kinane with Health Matters. He's in Ireland, so we get the pleasure of listening to his beautiful, beautiful accent today. So, Sean, tell us a little bit how you got started in things, where the idea from Health Matters came from, how you got to where you are today.
Thanks for having me, guys. So Health Matters came around in a kind of a roundabout way, I suppose. So 2008, I left Ireland, traveling the world. We settled in Perth, Australia. I got a job as a personal trainer, and one of the personal trainers on site in Perth had the equipment. I started to put my clients through them. He had a CardioCoach 1, and we got some great results working my clients through his testing unit that I started to work directly with him. And I realized the power of the unit. I didn't stay in Perth for too long. Traveling was calling me, and I went through Asia and South America and came back to Dublin, Ireland in late December 2010. And the 6th of April 2011 was my first day of business. I think I did kind of 2 metabolic tests since then, or on that day. And that has led to where we are today. So over 25,000 tests, 14 years in business, currently have 5 machines in operation, 3 staff members, and it's just going bigger and better every week.
That's amazing.
And so
25,000 tests. Yeah, that's awesome.
Blows my mind.
Here's a nice little figure for you. So in year 1, I did 259 tests. About 3 weeks ago, I did 180 in a week.
Oh my goodness. That's wild. And you said you have 5 machines, is that correct?
Yeah, so currently we have 2 CardioCoach 2.0 Pros, and we have 3 CardioCoach 1.0s, but we're looking to get rid of and upgrade to the new machinery on all our systems.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So dive into the approach that Health Matters takes with this type of testing. Why do you value it so much, and how are you using it to help your clients?
And we work with such a wide range of customers. There's no typical or there's no average. Like, we could work with high-performing Olympic athletes, and 15 minutes later I could be working with someone that is struggling with massive ranges of obesity or limitations in obesity. We work with and have contracts with big pharmaceutical companies, big tech companies, the police force, the fire brigade, underwater welders, the prison service. We work on clinical trials. We work with high-end colleges where we look at the performance data. But basically, it's about collecting real, individual, accurate data. And if I have real, individual, accurate data, I can do whatever I want with that person from a goals perspective. And using the KORR equipment, we know how reliable and how accurate it is. And then it's up to us as coaches and us with our clients to get them to use the data through education. And then anything's possible at that point.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that being able to use the data to help individuals is so key. We talk a lot about precision medicine and how important precision medicine is, being able to get things right for the individual. Talk about that, about how this helps us practice precision medicine more accurately.
Well, look, I'm not a believer of any form of algorithms. I don't use calculators. I don't use calculations for people to work their zone 2 out based off their age, height, weight, shoe size. It's a load of rubbish, and it happens all too often. And you know it. People tell you they're training in zone 2 when they're not, or they're in a calorie deficit when they're not. So there's no denying what the data deliverance can do. So it gives us that precise measurement. Let's use threshold as an example, or even an RMR, for example, that there's no hiding. People can't hide anymore. They can't create or state that they're in a deficit if they're not, or they're not doing their zone 2 if they're in zone 3 and zone 4. I had a customer this morning who just told me that his heart rate is unusual because it just goes too high too quick. And I was like, yeah, that's probably because you don't do a warm-up and you just run out your door and run as fast as you can. He was like, yeah, no, that's exactly what I do. I said, yeah, but you're in full control of that. So we identified his threshold at 163. And I was like, so do you know what you're doing? Like, you know how the journey looks going forward? And he goes, yeah, but I can't keep my heart rate below 163. And I was like, no, you can. Like, that's your responsibility to do that. So it's people. I think, and one thing I always say, I could teach anybody to test. I can literally teach anybody to test in a couple of hours, but it's the interpretation of the data that makes a tester. And why I value me and why I value my team is because of the level of understanding that we have with physiological data that we gather through testing. But it's the application, how to use it, how to understand it. That's what differentiates us between anybody else, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Applying that data to people in the right way so that you can get the optimal result is so important. And that example of the person not, thinking that they could stay under 163 beats per minute, it's like, well, you may have to walk or jog, or like your pace will definitely have to be different to do that, but it's going to be okay. Nobody on Strava is actually going to call you out
It
for
wasn't
that.
even a slow pace. It was an 8 minute mile that he was running, you know. So
Oh,
it's not like
yeah.
I'm telling him to go for a walk, but he always speaks about breakdown and fatigue and injury, and he never achieves the times that he wants to achieve. I said, yeah, because you're permanently anaerobic. He's 3 kids under 5. He is in a stressful job. And I'm just like, man, no wonder you're not achieving what you want to achieve.
Yeah, if you're not sleeping well, you're stressed out, and so you're running to blow off some steam. Yeah, that's probably not the right recipe for just going all out all the
But he
time.
wants to run a sub 3:30 marathon. So that's an 8 minute mile for the whole thing. He has the profile to do it. He scored a 56.3 VO2 max. His threshold is in a good place. He just needs to be patient and learn to build that aerobic capacity and build that foundation of the house, and he'll be fine.
Well, you bring up such an interesting point, right? Is it's this data is so useful, can help us make better decisions, but then you've got a person in front of you. How have you found, like, how do you take that person and their specific psychology and then help them to make better decisions with the data and understanding their psychology?
I'm very blunt. I'm very to the point. I'm very honest. I don't beat around the bush. If they're not in a position that they think they are, I'll tell them. I have a really good profile now of being and creating very, very successful athletes that people know that if they listen to what I say, they'll get better. But I'll educate them on why they'll get better. And I think the most important thing I can do is educate people on energy systems and their understanding of aerobic and anaerobic metabolism, and speak about the positives and the negatives associated with both profiles. And when they understand that and they understand the gains that will be achieved and the journey that they'll have in front of them and what it looks like and how long it will take, you get the buy-in. But you also don't get the buy-in on certain people. Like, I know when people walk out my office door, they're not going to do what I told them to do, and that's fine. I've no problem with that. But if you do what I tell you to do, you will improve as an athlete. You'll also improve physically, mentally. Your work productivity will go up. Your relationships at home will go up. It's an endless amounts of performance gains, not just in the sport that you want, but if I can tell somebody that we're going to have a profound effect on their work productivity, or going to have a profound effect on their personal relationships by getting them to be more aerobically conditioned, they're going to take that as a win, and they will take it as a win eventually when you can point these things out to them.
Well, I think that's such an important point is, obviously the performance and whatever thing that you're doing, but can it affect those other domains? Can it affect how I'm showing up in relationships, how I'm showing up at work? When you can really get this broad snapshot and this kind of big overview of their health, you really can have impacts in all those other areas. And we see that all the time with the people that we're testing. And so I love that you highlighted that point. Because it's not just the physical, it's all those other domains.
It's one of my favorite parts when I retest people and kind of get to see how their journey's been since the last time we tested and things, and hear all the different ways. They're like, I'm running for the first time without knee pain. I'm running for the first time and enjoying it. I've always kind of just slogged through it, and now I enjoy running. And, those types of things make it so much more worth it. What kinds of things like that do you see with your clients?
Yeah, but like even being able to play with your children after going to do a long run, someone would say they're completely wrote off for the day. So I'm famous for saying overtrained and underfueled. They're the most athletes I see ever. So they don't eat enough calories, they don't eat enough carbohydrate, and they train too hard to the point where they can't perform. So you could have it from an energy perspective. We see a lot with memory or mental fatigue. We see a lot with irritability. Males unable to get an erection is something that we see a lot from overtrained and underfueled. Females losing their cycle. like there's such a wide variety of, like, I remember not too long ago I had a 24-year-old male in with me. He's an electrician, does 25,000 steps a day, trains 14 times a week. Like, straight away, get your head around that. Now, he's in incredible shape. He has an 8-pack, but he can't get an erection. I was like, man, you're 24 years of age. Like, that's going to cause you some serious issues very, very soon. And I educated him. We got him around. We got him understanding. I think I was giving him another 1,200 calories a day. And he was worried. He was worried. He was worried. And he recently just had a baby, and he has a 6-pack still. His energy is great. His mood is great. He has a family. And I see him regularly enough at races and stuff, and he comes up and thanks me every day, every time he sees me. And I'm like, man, I don't need to be thanked. You did it. I just told you how to do it. So little things like that are really important.
That's such an important step, is that they have to do the work, right? They have to listen and do the things. But you can give them such precise information. Speaking of the precision, what made you choose the CardioCoach over everything else? I know that's kind of where you got introduced to it. But why have you stuck with CardioCoach for so long?
Because it's so good. It's I know it so well. I know it inside out. Having the team at KORR, Jody has been unbelievable for me over the years. Before Jody, there was Andrew, who I would have dealt a lot with. Since Marc's come on, the only time they hear from me is probably when there's a problem and there's not too many problems. So the changing of the equipment now is going to lower the issues with the machinery having going back to America. But it's a very, very friendly, easy to use, very easy presentable. You can control a lot. The maintenance on them are low, but the accuracy on them is high. And they're a very powerful unit when you know how to use them. And again, it's the interpretation, but the support from you guys that I've got, there's never a need to look anywhere else. Why would I? And I've looked at other people's reports. I've looked at other people's data, and it doesn't compare, if you ask me. It doesn't look and do the job that I wanted to do. So, as I can tell you right now, and that's not just because I'm talking to you, but I'll never leave KORR as long as my business is in operation.
Yeah, well, that's, I feel the same way. We started testing around the same time, it sounds like. So I bought my first CardioCoach in 2013, but first started testing in about 2010. So around the same time. Yeah. And it's just fascinating. I've vetted every other system out there just to see what the features were and all those things. And every time I'm like, yeah, compared to the CardioCoach, the ease of use, the fact that I can turn it on and be testing somebody in like 3 minutes is unreal compared to any other device. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that I feel like it gives me that accurate information so quickly, so straightforward, that's why I've stuck with it as well. And now, over time, now I'm working with KORR much more intimately than I was before even. And so it's been a really fun journey for me as well. That's interesting to hear. I always love to hear people's different takes as to why they stick with the CardioCoach and things. So thanks.
I was very reluctant, and Jody and Julie, and they all wanted me to change to 2.0.
Oh yeah.
I'm a creature of habit, and I like our systems to be like, we go in and there could be multiple testers in a facility testing, and I want the results to look the same way. And I was worried that could the 2.0s be as robust as the 1.0s in regards to, like, we could go in and we could do 24 tests in a day over a 12-hour period. So we could do 48 tests in a day if both testers are metabolic and VO2 testing. Like, we do long days and we put the machine through big hours, and it was always a fear to jump over if they couldn't handle it, because I was thinking, this is my business model and this is what I do. But I don't know what took me so long, but we couldn't be happier at the moment where we are with the 2.0s. It's brilliant. They're amazing. The transition has been faultless. We were forced into it. There was a couple of issues with electrical components and stuff like that on our 1.0s that we knew were going to cause an issue eventually. And I can't believe I worked with the 1.0s for as long as I have. But
yeah,
we're happy where we are, and we're even happier where we're going.
Yeah, the 2.0 is definitely an upgrade. Even though the 1.0 is a tank, I just had
workhorse.
Yeah, I mean, I had mine that I put back on the bench just the other day to see. I hadn't used it in a little while, so we put a new O2 sensor in it and put it back on the bench to see if it was still in spec and everything. 13 years, who knows how many tests later, everything's still within spec. Like, that's amazing. And it had been on a shelf for over a year. Like, that's amazing that it's that well built. So anyway, it's kind of fun.
And with you, Sean, like, you've really taken the units to their limits.
Yeah.
No one else is doing the volume of testing like you are. And so you've been able to see, like, hey, when we're running these, again, 48 tests in a day, like,
Which is crazy.
That's crazy, right? But seeing that it holds up.
My record is 42 tests in 2 days. So that's amazing. 48 tests in a day is wild.
You've got it down. You've got it down. So, you mentioned earlier that you work with a broad range of clients, right? From elite athletes to kind of your average Joe. And so what should individuals know about this type of testing? Like, why is it for everyone, not just the elite level?
It's for everyone because at the end of the day, the variety of information it can give us. If someone's coming in to understand VO2 from a longevity marker, we can look at that. We look at heart rate elevation. One of the things that I have done over the years is we've seen irregular heart rates in testing, which has led to people getting heart operations within 24 hours of leaving my office, which has been amazing. It's good and it's bad in one sense, but it's great that we found two particular stories. We can look at it from a health perspective. You can have someone coming in to want to understand this whole concept of zone 2, so we can accurately identify it for them. We can look at people from a weight management perspective. And again, it all boils down to the goal. And if your goal is in any way related to energy or weight or performance or health and longevity, I can interpret the data for it to be delivered that way. So that's where the win comes in, is that when clients come in, we pre-screen them and we'll give them a questionnaire. Some people might want to come in and just know their VO2 and have absolutely no care in the world about anaerobic thresholds. I'll still give them a bit of information on it, but the reason it's applicable, or the reason everybody should get tested, is because you learn so much about you as an individual. And if you want to then put it into practice, that's where the application comes in.
Yeah, I love that. So that makes me think, how many different test protocols do you run? How much are you matching the protocol you're running to the individual's goals?
Very much so. I'm training a new staff member up at the moment, and I'm trying to get her to understand protocols. I believe protocols make tests. I have created all my own protocols. I don't know if you guys know this, but yeah, I do. I create all my own protocols, and I believe it's taken me years to get these perfected. Only last night I did a hand bike test, which is something that I had to work with and understand and get my head around why the increments were going to happen. To answer the question, run testing, we have a pretty basic model, and then we will deviate off it depending on the athlete. So we will ask them their 5K time, basically 5K or 10K time, and then we can work out off that what our starting paces are. The protocol for the first 10 minutes was generally going to incrementally increase at the same rate. And then when we get into the higher speeds, we may do double inclines, we may do double speeds. If they're a sub 15-minute 5K runner, we know that we need to get them off by creating higher increases, because there's no point in them doing these long tests that isn't going to give us the data that we want unless we're doing an economy test. And the bike testing I've found was quite challenging, because if the watts went up too quick, too early, and we're identifying ventilatory threshold, the detection came in too early, so we needed to drag the increases out over a 90-second to 120-second increment. Same with your row testing. But again, it's understanding the data of the individual. It's asking the questions, understanding their experience, and then using my experience and my team's experience to put a protocol in place on the spot. Like, there's no point in me creating a protocol and saying, no, we have to stick to this if I know that it's causing an issue and the test isn't going to run that way correctly. So mid-test, I can change a protocol, but it's in my mind and it's based on experience. So we've loads of protocols, but it's experience that's the protocol that wins for me, and understanding feedback and looking at the data and looking at the curves and looking at the heart rates and looking at RP scale and speaking to the client and getting that feedback live is what makes us work. And with what, like last week, or I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, and you guys are going to know who it is. I don't know who she was. She's after buying a CardioCoach, and she rang me. She's in Ireland, and she asked me for my cycling protocol. And I was like, what? Why would I give you my protocol? And she couldn't get it. She was saying, oh, look, we're not going to be choosing the same clients. I'm like, if you live in Ireland, you're taking my clients because we go anywhere. And it's like Coke and Pepsi and asking them for the recipe. It just doesn't work. Protocols make successful testers. There's been many new companies started in Ireland, and I've sent in family members, staff members, and we've done cold shoppers basically, and their protocols are terrible. And I'm so happy at how bad their protocols are.
Yeah, no, that really is the thing. So we did an episode a couple times ago about test what you intend to measure, and
Yeah.
talking about that, like you have to set up the test that you're going to run to measure what you intend to measure. Because just running a Bruce protocol for every single person isn't going to get you to where you need to be for if you want to measure different aspects of their health and fitness. And then you mentioned also how you're testing on an arm bike, rowing machine, elliptical bike, all these things. How important is that to test on the piece of equipment that best mimics their activity?
Oh, look, it's a no-brainer. We do a lot of work with field sport athletes, and field sport athletes come in and request to do a road test. I'm just like, no. Like if they're looking to use the data to help complement their sport, we need to replicate or reflect their physiological parameters as best we can. Triathletes, we obviously know we need to get them to use both disciplines, bike and run, because the zones are going to be different. If we have elite level rowers, obviously we're going to get them in the position of the rowing. The hand bike was very interesting. Obviously it's a wheelchair athlete, so we had to work with what we had in that sense. But it's so important. We have obviously a lot of CrossFit athletes, and take nothing away from them. They're unbelievable athletes, but they can't row. They're not rowers. So sometimes we'll have people that have a bit of an ego and they think that they can row, and we'll put them on a VO2 row test and they're going to be done in 5 minutes. And I'm like, you know what? Like, that's not your VO2 max. What's just happened is you've completely imploded because you're not developed to do what we've asked you to do. So it's about trying to get your client to understand that you're trying to get the best for them by pushing them in a certain direction to do a certain discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being able to give them an optimized plan for making improvement in that area. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have obviously worked with a bunch of different athletes, MMA, the Gaelic Athletic Association, did I say that right? Triathletes. What are some of the biggest things that have stood out among those clients?
It's a continuous thing. You see that it's probably a wild statement to make, but let's go with it. Most athletes are aerobically underdeveloped. They put no emphasis on understanding physiology. They just keep throwing bricks at it or keep hoping that the house doesn't fall down if they keep building it. But I believe a lot of field sport athletes are completely underdeveloped. I believe a lot of MMA athletes are completely underdeveloped from an aerobic perspective, to a point where we have to understand that the negative onset of anaerobic metabolism can cause your decision choice to be poor. It can cause your guard to drop because your arms are too heavy because there's too much stress and strain going on. And it's an overriding factor that ego gets in the way, and people don't put timescales on things. They want things yesterday. And just the training structure for a lot, and don't get me wrong, like a lot of my athletes, a massive percent of my business isn't professional. So in that sense is that they're looking and trying to train and compete with pros, but they have a full-time job, a young family, and the training, what they think is they have a very limited time to train, so they push themselves until they break constantly. But if they had a bit more patience and they were willing to put longer timescales on their goals, they'll be far more successful.
I feel like I have that same conversation with people all the time. It's like, look, we can help you train for this race, but why not let's train for a race 3 years from now and set everything up, and you're going to crush that race if we can take a longer time to build a big enough base that injury, fatigue, all of those things will be a non-factor because we'll build you up for that. I know this race is important, but let's focus on a race with enough time horizon out that we can actually get you to where you can absolutely crush it.
But look, people are unwilling. There's not enough patience, and ego is a big problem.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, I love what you said earlier about finding those values out, because it helps you make better decisions. If you don't have the capacity, then you're forced by your limited capacity to make certain decisions. And so, I think that's one of the biggest difficulties out there. Like, you might have the performance aspect, but can I make the best decisions, right? Am I asking the right questions? Am I making the best decisions? And so how do you use this information to help people make better decisions? How do you use this information to cut past a lot of the misinformation that's out there? One of the things that I tell people all the time is that, when we look at what's out there in the health and fitness world, it's people with different timelines and different goals talking past each other. And so how do you take all of that, help them sift through that, and decide this is what's actually actionable, and this is actually going to make a difference in your performance. This isn't just fluff. This is, we're cutting through all of that and getting to the basic stuff that's going to help you improve.
Because a lot of the stuff out there is just poor quality information, and it's all based on hearsay. It's based on 1 kilometer Cooper test. It's based on Broncos. It's based on algorithms, as we spoke about, that aren't applicable to an individual. So when people get people in and they talk about their wearables, and basically I speak facts, and we've just done a test on a person that's sitting in front of me. There's no algorithm, there's nothing. And if we can educate them on the ability to understand that if they work with their data, they'll get better, and we showcase what it does. And again, it's education, isn't it? To make sure that they understand the why. I don't want to just give someone a file. I need to make sure that they know why they're doing what they're doing. And if we know why we're doing what we're doing, then they'll buy into it. And if I can show them that if the development of aerobic capacity can delay the onset of this, and the development of aerobic capacity will cause this to happen and that to happen, you get the buy-in. You will get the buy-in if you can educate them the right way. And 14 years dealing with people, every hour I have a new person in front of me. You get to understand people as well, and you learn how to read them and understand what way you need to be. And sometimes you need to be cruel to be kind. Sometimes you need to be kind. Sometimes you need to get a bit, not angry, but as I said, I'll say it as it is. I'll be completely honest, and I'll tell people what I think, if they like to hear it or not. I won't be cruel, but I will say it as it is. And sometimes I think that's the best approach, where they really understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I love that approach. It's this idea of being nice versus kind, right? It might be nice to sugarcoat things, but it's not actually kind to do that. It's not helping them with their long-term goals.
Right.
I don't sugarcoat anything, and sometimes I'm in the office and the guys are going through files with people, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, stop talking rubbish. Let me just get in here, and I'll just go in and I'll just say it. Now, I don't know if they feel, because it's my company, I can be a bit more direct, but I've trained them up as well to be, look, stop the BS here. Let's get straight to the point. You're overweight. You need to lose weight. You mightn't think it, or you might think you're in shape, but you're 92 kilos, you want to run a sub 330 marathon, you're not in shape. You need to get that weight down. That weight down is going to grow your VO2. Growing your VO2 is going to grow aerobic capacity. Growing aerobic capacity is going to make you run faster for longer. And then the light bulb, you see the penny drop. So it's about bringing them around to the understanding. I'm not standing there, sitting there calling them fat. I'm sitting there saying, look, you're too heavy to do what you need to do. You mightn't think you're out of shape, but this is what dropping weight's going to do for you. Rather than saying, like dancing around the subject, just get straight to the point.
Yeah. And I love that you can kind of make the data the enemy instead of you being the enemy. It's like, look, these are just the facts. Like, this is what it is. And, based on the best quality evidence that we have and your individual test, this is where you need to be to have the success that you're looking for. Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit ago wearables, and so
oh yeah,
well, it's interesting, right? Because we're seeing wearables all over the place, and people are just drowning in data that they don't necessarily know what to do with. And so I'm interested to know, like, what are your thoughts on wearables? What do you see as potential benefits? What do you see as the major drawbacks?
I think the benefits of them is that it gets people moving, regardless of the accuracy in step counting or heart rate monitoring or anything like that. I think one of the real pluses is people want to close their rings. People want to get a certain steps done, which is great. But I think they have to understand that it's a wearable. Like, if we look at what VO2 is, volume of oxygen consumed per kilogram of body mass, like, your watch isn't connected to your lungs. You're not breathing into it. So straight away, that's an inaccurate measurement. And we work with Apple. Like I have a big contract with Apple, and we go down and I'll tell people their VO2, and they're like, no, 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 my watch said this, and I'm like, no, your watch is wrong. Like
Yeah.
and they're like, no, no, but it's Apple. I'm like, no, I'm well aware of what it is. I know exactly what it is, but it's wrong.
Right.
So you get them to buy in, and then you understand that it's an algorithm, and you get them. Like I'm like, how is your VO2 going down and up in an hour's period? Like, think about what's going on. When did your last time your watch know what your weight was? Is it connected to a smart scale? No, sure, don't put in any weight. Exactly, like it's wrong in terms of the in-depth parameters. The zones are my biggest heartbreak in the planet in regards to their zone 2 identification or my zone system, where they're always in the red zone, they're always in the yellow zone. But look, it's good for me in one sense because it gets me more business. People become obsessed with them to a point where if they don't wear their wearable, they don't consider their workouts done. It's crazy.
Yeah.
My dad is not obsessed, but he has a phone that tracks his steps. He doesn't have a watch, he doesn't have anything else. And he's 74 years of age, and like he's walking around and he's like, oh, I must get my phone. I'm like, for what, Dad? And he's like, to track my steps. I'm like, why? Like, who cares what you're doing? I have a wearable that will track our steps, and I'm walking beside you. Or when he's on a bike, he used to put the phone in his sock so it would get registered as a step. So
If you don't count it, it doesn't count. It won't burn the same number of calories.
exactly. And I'm like, no, but you're doing it anyway. So it's there's pros and cons. I think we become too obsessed with them. I've a watch that shows my steps, but I don't look at it for anything. It tracks my GPS when I run. I don't care. I don't challenge myself to do any amount. I'm doing 20 plus thousand steps a day anyway. But there's pros with them because it gets people moving. But I think the over reliance, or where it tells you need 3 days recovery after waking up after 12 hours sleep, like I'm like, I don't know if I need 3 days recovery. I think I'm feeling okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a lot of people, talk about, well, how come my whatever bioelectrical impedance scale, the numbers that I'm getting on that for my RMR, how come that's so different than the values you're getting? And it's like, that's the reason that we do this testing, because individuals don't fit.
No, the reason they said the name of their scale is the reason why it's so innocuous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, every body is so different, right? And so to use an algorithm to figure that out gives us a decent ballpark. And when we're looking at, 10,000 people, it's going to be fairly accurate for 10,000 people. But for the individual, those numbers vary so much. Our mitochondrial densities, our efficiencies, all those things are so varied from person to person. Even muscle fiber types and all those things make that variation so big. And so that's why that testing is so important. And you spoke to that very well with the exercise testing as well, that like when I have that person in front of me, their results are going to be different than anybody else, even if their metrics all look the same. If they're the same height, weight, age, gender, ethnicity, you put two people on and their tests are going to look wildly different at times.
Sure, even sharing parents, sharing DNA. Like I share parents with my older brother, and his heart rate's about 40 beats higher than mine. I have a really low resting heart rate, and he does too, but I did a lot more kind of endurance-based sport while he's a 200-meter butterfly swimmer, and I don't say different upbringings, but like what we did throughout our childhood growing up, probably were a bad example. When people compare friends because they're the same age, height, weight, and gender, but was there drink, was there drugs, was there stress? How did you come into the world? What was your background in sport? And then you kind of get their head around, okay, that's why her heart rate zone could be different to mine. And the comparing of heart rate zones is, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, it drives you crazy, doesn't it? I've had a couple of friends that are runners that'll have like a similar VO2 max, but then the one always smokes the other in races. And it's like, we're supposed to be about the same level of fitness and whatever. And it's like, yeah, but he's got some different X factor reasons why he's crushing you in all these races, even though you train together. It just, those variations, and that's why we test.
So you mentioned a little bit ago working with Apple. I know you've worked for some other big brands and stuff. What have you learned as you've worked with with those different brands?
At the end of the day, they're just people. They're no different from you and me, and be able to go in and operate our testing service in any of the companies, the big pharmaceuticals, the big tech companies. It's there's an eagerness and a want to do it. But the one thing I will say, the people that need the testing are the people that don't do the testing. So if we're looking at our metabolic testing, those that are significantly overweight or obese are the people that will walk by and cover their face and don't avail of what would be free testing to help make a positive impact on their health and well-being for the rest of their life. The VO2 stuff is very, very similar, and it's promoted very well. We work very closely with the doctors in the likes of Apple and LinkedIn and these big companies, and in the pharma companies, the likes of Eli Lilly and AstraZeneca, the same type of stuff where we're promoting the joint service to give them back to create a better health and well-being. But the guys that need it, unfortunately, are the guys that don't do it. But we also figure out there's some unbelievable athletes hiding in these places because they only have, they're not professional athletes, they're part-time athletes, and we've had some really, really good athletes test with us in these places.
Well, so when people tell you that, yeah, when you say like some of the people that should be testing are the ones that aren't testing, when people tell you things like, well, I kind of want to get in shape first before I come and do a test, what's your response to that? It kills me when people say that.
I'm like, man, just leave your ego at the door. It's not about getting that big marker. So my response is there's never a better time to test. Unless the only reason that you're coming to me to test for is to nurse your ego, then we test at any point. Because if I test you at your lowest point, I'm going to get you to your quickest point the quickest way. So I think the problem is that when we look at VO2 and the name of the testing as VO2 testing, the people only think it's about that number. And that's it. They don't understand the value of what's under the hood. I probably spend 2 minutes talking about VO2 max, and I spend 25 minutes talking about energy systems and the application of aerobic and anaerobic and understanding it and stuff like that. So it's probably social media, it's society, it's a number that people know, and to a degree, they're correct, aren't they? Like your VO2 should in theory grow if you get fitter, but that's not what we're seeking. So it's something I probably hear at least 5 times a day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that VO2 is unimportant. It's just the result of training the right way for your body. And that information is the whole lead up to the VO2. Like, yeah,
but I also think it makes it nice for a client's journey if I can test you at your lowest point, and then we can test you at, like, I'll give you an example. I had a fella, I remember the date and all. It was the 23rd of October, 23. He rang me and said, look, Sean, I'm overweight. I've just had my first daughter and I want to make a significant impact on my health and well-being. And he came in 116 kilos, significantly overweight. And he scored very low. I think he scored like a 26 or something. And to the day, 23rd of October, 24, he came in and scored a superior. And he did 4 tests over the duration of the year. And he got his body weight down, like he was sub 90 kilos. And he made like a significant impact on his health and well-being for the rest of his life. It was amazing. It was great to see. And he said he was so happy he tested when he was at his worst point.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such a cool story.
I wanted him so badly to break superior, and like he did by like 0.2 of a milliliter. I was like, you're not getting off this until you break superior. That he did, in fairness to him. But it was great because he went very low, fair, good, superior. So I knew the progress, and I'd stayed in contact with him and stuff. It was great, fair. Like, but sure, look, he did it for his daughter, and he'll never go back there. He's probably added 15 years onto his life, easy.
Oh yeah, easy. And quality years, not just years, but quality years to his life, and that's so exciting. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of that guy you had that was going to hike Everest, and he was like, it was not, my own goal was not enough to get me out of bed day after day, but I wanted to show my grandkids that they could do hard things.
Yeah. So I'll get out of bed for them.
Yeah.
And so it's a big motivator.
Yeah.
If you can find that deeper why, it's a huge motivator. So one of the things you mentioned made me think about this. We talk about VO2, And there's a lot of devices out there that will measure just VO2. Why is VCO2, so measuring carbon dioxide, why is that so important as well?
Well, look, we can obviously use it for helping us with threshold identification. I look at it from a perspective of inefficiency. I massively utilize it. But see, this is where it's sometimes it can go over people's heads. So I think we need to choose our clients when we look at it. And if Mary wants to come in, Mary's just an example. If Mary wants to come in and we want to just look at her VO2 and we kind of feel that the VCO2 is going to get lost on her and threshold identification and stuff like that, we won't necessarily go into it. But if we can show an athlete that they become significantly more efficient down the line by the oxygen utilization or the changing in the ventilation graphs, we're going to be able to go into a lot more detail with them. Basically, an efficiency perspective is where we're going to use it, and a fueling type perspective as well.
Love it. Yeah, to me, it's such a critical component for being able to really see what's going on with their whole, metabolism and being able to game plan for people more specifically.
Metabolic health, I suppose, is a way to condense it down, isn't it?
Yeah, how metabolically flexible or how metabolically healthy is this person? So, yeah, super helpful.
But it depends on the situation we're in. I really think, and you probably know yourself. Like I find sometimes I go into deal with people talking about VCO2 and they're just looking at me and just shaking their heads. I'm like, okay, we'll just park that here and we'll move on.
Yeah, for sure. You have to make sure you're talking on their level and the level they're ready for. And often when you do multiple tests, their education starts to grow in it. They start to learn a little bit more and start to research more. How often do you recommend people retest? And I know that's somewhat goal specific, but...
Yeah, so like realistically from a VO2 perspective, we run a program called 20 Weeks to a Better Marathon, and we will test them 20 weeks from Dublin, which is the end of October, and then we'll test them 10 weeks later. One of the reasons we do it in such a short period of time is because a lot of the athletes we get involved in this program have no understanding or history of aerobic base building. And for the start of our marathon block, we will do a lot of aerobic conditioning, like a lot, with just some sprinklings of anaerobic stimulation, to a point where 10 weeks later, we're not looking for a growth in VO2, we're looking for a growth in aerobic capacity or function. And then we can showcase them, look, this is what we've done. If it's general, I would say 12 to 16 weeks is what we're looking for most people if they wanted to retest it in. So, and then they start to push it out. When you come to me, it's probably going to take you 3 or 4 weeks to get your head around looking at your watch, getting a heart rate monitor, understanding the data. So then all of a sudden you're like, 4 to 6 months is the time frame. But we've sponsored athletes that we work with where we could test them 6 to 8 times a year. If they have events coming up, we run submaximal testing. We need to look at the RER values. We need to look if we're changing the diet is having an effect on it. I'm famous for saying it depends, and it does. It depends on who we're dealing with. But if it's just a general Joe and we're looking at someone that wants to come in for bi-yearly testing, yeah, sign them up. A lot of people will do a 6 months to a year if it's just general. But if you're an athlete, I would be encouraging you to test around your season. So test pre-season, test mid-season, test post-season. Know what you are at your best and know how far we are off it if we do take an extended leave.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very similar to what I recommend. It depends answer is a good one, right? Because it really does depend on what their goals are, their timelines are, and things somewhat, the faster you want to make a change, probably the more often you should test. And the more your time horizon's a little bit longer, you can gap that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really the hallmark of someone that knows what they're doing, is that it is individualized to the client. And it does depend.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think, you've been around for a while now. I'm sure you've seen like other businesses come and go, right? Flashy, we're going to do this. But you've had staying power. What do you feel like separates you from those type of practitioners? What helps you stay innovative in this field?
A couple of different things. I have a massive self-belief and confidence in what I do. I'm not afraid of no. I don't care if somebody says no to me. Like I remember when I started the business, 2011, I would be in a facility at 6 a.m. handing out flyers, and I'd drive to another facility at 10 a.m. and then I'd go get some food and I'd drive to another facility at 8 p.m. and another facility at 10 p.m. and I mightn't get one test booked in, but it never changed my belief in my product and my service. And I think that's something that people lack these days, is the willingness to graft when it's not flowing or when there's not being successful. But I always believed in it, and I always believed that I would be at the level that I am and the level that I'm going and where I'm going. So self-belief is unquestionable, and it's not to be mistaken for arrogance. It's a massive belief in me and confidence in my team to do what we want to do. It's also me as an individual. Like, people buy people. People don't buy services. People buy people first. And I'm a very personable and very open person, but I'm also incredibly good at what I do. And again, that's not an arrogance. That's a confidence that I can take data and I can interpret data and I can deliver data and make people better. But I'm also willing to work hard. Like, I work hard. I do a lot of work. I have long hours. I work a lot. Like, I do 60, 70 hours a week, unquestionable. And I do more hours. Sure, look, Mark, I was talking to you last night. What was my time at 12 o'clock at night? And
Yeah.
It's nothing to be, and I'm not that I'm not proud of it, but like the expression, you don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard. And I get that. And the people that are only going to work, that people that are going to only remember you working out of your children, I get that. But like, in order to provide the life that I try and provide for my family, that requires work. And I want to provide a certain life for them and for me. And it does require the work to do it. And I'm willing to put the work in, but I also really enjoy what I do. Like, I've done 25,000 tests and I still look forward to the test that I'm going to do in an hour. So it's the love and the belief, I suppose, that is separate where I am. I'll tell you a funny story. Not too long ago, somebody rang me and told me that they purchased a machine to try and compete with Sean Kinane, and he soon realized that he couldn't compete with Sean Kinane, and I bought his machine off him. So it's little things like that. Like, there's a couple of things, but like, I don't know, pick what you want out of that. It's a mixture of things. I have great support. My wife's unbelievable to be able to let me do what I do. My father has been great. I have great brothers that we're all self-employed and we're all enthusiastic entrepreneurs. I'm very proud of what I do as well. So.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that actually brings me to another question. Initially it started with just you. Now you've got a team behind you. What kind of things led into the decisions about the type of team that you created? How did you select people? How did you find people? How did you bring them into your business and keep things going?
Very, very difficultly. It's one of my biggest criticisms. I took way too long to get somebody in because I have this level of what I expect, and nobody matched up to it. And for years, people are like, you need to just get somebody else in. I'm like, yeah, but what if he does this and what if she does that? And I'm still unwilling to let go of certain aspects of my business, which is probably detrimental to my I've never stressed that, so I wouldn't say mental health. I'm in a very lucky position that pressure is a privilege, and I really enjoy the pressure and the workload that I have. But it's a criticism of mine. It took me a long time. So my number two, who's under me, Keelan, he's been with me probably 4 to 5 years, and he's been absolutely amazing for me in that journey. He's been faultless. It took a long time to get him on board, and he has been on board now. Full time, and it's been a great decision. I've recently hired again Gemma. She's come in part time, but I know these people. I knew them before they worked with me, so I knew what their characters were like, and I knew what they were like as people. And they need to be willing to work, and they need to be willing to put a graft in. And if once they're willing to do that and they're willing to learn, I'm happy to coach them and train them.
Yeah,
Love it.
No, I love that. It's just it's finding the people that really fit and that can exponentiate what you're doing, and it does take some work. What do they always say?
Slow to hire, quick to fire.
There you go. There you go.
You got to be slow to hire and quick to fire.
I like it. Like the team I have is small. It's like I'm still hands on, so much so that like I don't know where my role's going. I don't like. I've took like there's too many chefs in the kitchen today. I'm in the office, but there's two of them in today with me, and I was like, I don't want to sit at an office and create booking links for companies. I don't want to book hotels and order supplies. I want to be in the field testing. But then again, is that what I should be doing? Should Sean be taking a back step from testing? Probably not, because people buy people first and people want me and I'm the face of the business. So I don't know. I don't know where I'll go with it at the moment, but I don't think I'll ever stop testing. I really don't. Like,
That's so funny. I believe I've said that exact same phrase.
Absolutely.
Because that is the passion behind it. Is I can see the power that this can have in individuals' lives, and so I love testing people. It's just really fun to be able to have those conversations and see those light bulbs turn on and things. So yeah, it's tough to figure out how best to replace yourself. Do I replace myself on the clinical side, or I replace myself on the administrative side? Like, how do I do that?
but it's like if you send me an email and you send me your phone number, I'm gonna have you booked in. Your confirmation email is going to be sent to you, and everything's going to be explained to you in less than 2 minutes. So I'll generally do a call and a booking in less than 2 minutes. I'm like, nobody's going to do that as well as I do that. So I'm like, I can't give that up. And then I'm like, well, this person wants me to test, and I'm going to do a better job than that. So I'm not giving that up. And then I'm just like, oh, here, forget it. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because it's hard to feel like you can replace you. But you never know. Maybe they're better at it than you are. You just don't know.
Well, look, yeah, I don't know. My daughter's 6, and she shows more interest. She was like, she's gonna own Health Matters one day.
I love it.
My son, who's 9, he's like, yeah, no. And every day I come home, they ask how many VO2 tests you do and how many metabolic tests you do, and like they know it inside out.
Put them to work.
I'm thinking like, yeah, I'd love if they worked in the business, but. Yeah, to answer the question, it's been a criticism of mine, criticism which I can accept. I've probably been too slow to do the hiring process. Now, behind the scenes, as I said, my team around me, my family, my friends, that team's brilliant. But to bring the staff in, getting them testing and getting them to the level that I expect them to be at, because I'm very honest, I run a very tight ship. I expect a lot. If you're going to work for me, I expect you to work at an incredibly high level, and I'll reward you for it. Like, my staff are very well rewarded for what they do. They're very well paid for what they do because they deserve it. But if you're not pulling your weight, I'm not going to have you. You know, you need to be on point, and it's difficult because you're dealing with people every 30 to 60 minutes, a new person. You need to be on from the moment you walk in here. Like, when we're in Apple, we'll do a 7 till 7. We'll do 12 hours of testing each one of us. You know, we'll have a new client in front of us, so we leave the hotel at 6:15 and we get back to the hotel at 7:30, 7:45. We'll train, we'll eat, and we'll go to bed, and we'll repeat that process for a week, you know. So
that's exhausting and awesome at the same time. Like,
it's not, it's fun.
Well, it is fun when you truly have that passion for it, but that's a lot, you know. That's so much. And so if you don't have that passion for it, it would be hard to stick with. So finding the right person is super important. So, you know, with that, how do you keep that drive, that innovation, you know, in your business? How do you keep that excitement and innovation there?
For me or for them?
I think for you, the drive is there. How do you keep it for them?
The way my passion comes across, you know, the different level of athletes that we're having, the fact that they are qualified and interested in the business, the fact that we can manipulate, probably the wrong word, we can, you know, manipulate data, or we can change somebody's lives. Like, I change lives every single day, and making sure that the staff are aware of the impact that they're having, not just on a person's life, on their family's life, and how positive of an impact that we have on these people. Like, we change lives every day, and that is a privilege in itself. So making sure that they know they're not just coming here to press buttons to get paid a salary. They need to know that what they're doing is changing people's lives, and I make them very, very aware of that. And obviously, financial goals for them is going to be there. They're going to seek that at the end of the day, and I need to keep them happy. And as I said, I look after them. I really reward them, because I believe the job that we do is second to none, and they deserve to be acknowledged through whatever it might be.
I love it.
So how have you, you know, obviously, again, you've been doing this for a long time. How has this trickled into the way that you approach, like, health, fitness with your own children, right? You mentioned talking to them about what you do, but how's this changed, like, how you approach health and fitness with them?
I'm laughing because it changed so much that we would manipulate the content of EPA and DHA to the different trimesters of my wife's pregnancy. Massively. I've studied a lot in nutrition and nutritional therapy, and performance nutrition is my passion. But like just the power of what we can do with the knowledge that we have. And I train every day. I'll do a double session today. My dad's 74 years of age. He's trained for, I've never ever remember the man not training. He's a member of the gym I'm in at the moment. He's probably the one that got me to the direction that I'm in. My mom played high level sport professionally. It's something that's been in my life forever. In saying that, when I was growing up, I wouldn't say I was overweight, but I wasn't in shape, and I didn't play a lot of team sports and stuff like that. And the gym was what I found very, very early, 16 years of age, joined the gym. I remember my mum and dad speaking to me saying, look, Sean, you need to do something about this. And I'm massively passionate about the health and longevity benefits of performance and nutrition and exercise, and how difficult, not how difficult it is, but I constantly speak to the kids. Like my son, we were away on holidays and my son nearly became a carnivore, and he's like, Daddy, how much protein have I eaten today? And like my daughter asking me, what about this? And where do you get vitamin D from? And where are we getting vitamin K from? And we'd go through it, and I'd supplement some of them. Like I will give the kids protein powders in their porridge. I've given the kids creatine at low levels dosages. I will manipulate their vitamin D content throughout the year because of the way Ireland is, and we look at the variety of fish and protein levels and greens and veg and stuff like that, where it's become massively important for me. And I'm not obsessive. They can have chocolate, they can have crisps, they can have ice cream. Absolutely they can. There's no problem with it, but they have to have the balance right. And getting my little boy to make sure he's having simple carbohydrate prior to training and try to his football, and we're using a Lucozade or a sports drink, Powerade or anything like that for his performance and the differences he feels, and the acknowledgement of sleep and eating patterns. And I haven't tested the kids yet, and I use the word yet. I won't test them unless they ask me to do it. But I've tested young athletes. Like I've tested as young as 8 and 9 years of age, with control, in where the journey going with them, and we've seen massive success on getting so low. But the kids haven't tested yet, but it is a massive part of my life, and it will be forever. And I went away there. We were in Mallorca for 2 weeks, and I trained every day. I trained for 30 minutes in the morning. I'd run, and then I would train in the gym for 30 minutes the next day. So every second day I just did it, and I brought my little boy with me a few times. And I think exercise, I remember he asked me, I was training for the marathon 2 years ago, and he's like, can I come with you? And I was like, no, like, I don't want you to come with me. And then I said, you know what? My 7-year-old or 8-year-old boy asking, can he come running with me at 6 a.m. in the morning in nature? I was like, sure, what better way could you do it? And to a point where he came on his bike with me, and then we did a duathlon not too long ago. He did 5K run and he did a 5K cycle with me. I just did a 10K run because he just wanted to be with me and spend the time with me. My daughter wanted to cycle with us, but she had the stabilizers on her bike. I said, no, you can't come with us unless you get your stabilizers off. So then she got her stabilizers off, so little things like that, but I don't push them. They can do what they want as long as they tick some boxes in regards to activity and nutrition.
Yeah, that's my wife's favorite question for my kids is, how did you move your body today? It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter, how you did. Just how did you move your body today? And if you haven't yet, get off the couch. Yeah, and so that's kind of our rule in our family is you got to move your body some way today. And that our kids are all, luckily, they kind of enjoy doing that anyway, but sometimes in the summer when they're off of school or other things, it's easy to get complacent if they don't have something programmed in for them. And so, yeah, I love that, the lifestyle. And it's fun to see how you've kind of made that part of your lifestyle. How do you address that with your clients, that making this part of a lifestyle and not just this thing they're doing right now?
Again, speaking about the health and longevity aspect of everything, it really hits home when you speak about health span versus lifespan, and the benefit of strength training, and females with weak bones or osteoporosis, or understanding how important it is to get the calcium back into the bone. I think you really hit home when you can talk about health span, and you want to see your grandkids grow up. And like, do I do it deliberately to touch a nerve? Yeah, absolutely. Does it work?
Yeah.
Of course it works, So it's important for us to highlight how it works and why it works, and then you get to buy in.
Agreed. I see it as not a manipulation, but as instead on selling them to help them. right? By getting them to buy in to what we're talking about, we're really helping them in the long run. And so, yeah, we definitely say certain phrases that get them to think deeply about what they really want out of doing this testing and out of exercise in general. But it really is a great way to help them realize, oh yeah, I do want these things. This is important to me. I need to make some changes.
Yeah, no, it is. It's important. But look, sure, the first step is they come and see me.
Yeah.
So if they're here, they've made the decision, to make a choice that's going to hopefully change their life in certain circumstances.
Yeah. Oh, and like you said, you've shown some examples of some amazing transformations, and I'm sure 25,000 tests in, you have lots of those stories that you could share.
The story time with Sean. I can tell stories forever.
There you go. That's your new podcast, right there. Story time with Sean.
No.
So speaking of podcasts, you had your Health Matters podcast, or you have your Health Matters podcast. Tell us a little bit more about that, kind of what the purpose was in your business and things.
So we do a lot of content on Instagram. And who's become a friend of mine now, Dan Campion from Primal Productions. He runs a podcast studio, and I was a guest on his podcast numerous times where we spoke. I think the first podcast we did was nearly 2.5 hours long.
Oh, wow.
And we went into detail about anything and everything. And he comes out and we do content. And I don't know if you're familiar are with my Instagram, but every single thing you see on my Instagram is not scripted. I don't script a single thing. I give him a list, he goes behind the camera and gives me the title, and I speak. And he was like, you've too much knowledge in your head to not get this information out into a podcast that's easy to understand and digest. And I was like, look, I've no interest in doing a podcast. I personally don't want to interview people. I feel my niche and my area is where I am. And he's like, no, let's do solo topic. Solo is topic specific. So my podcast is me on my own, solo, talking about a specific topic for 15 minutes or less. So to date, we've 16 recorded. And I'm saying to date because I've said it's parked for now, but I'm never saying never. If there is a reason for me to go back into the studio, I will. But you come into me and test. I make sure you understand the data. I educate you. I tell you what you need to do. But I'll also say, I think you should listen to episode 3, 4, and 9. Because that, I think, is where you're missing out. I think you need to listen to them. So they can constantly go back and listen to me going through. And one of the feedbacks, the analytics on them is been unbelievable. One of the feedbacks is that I make it sound so simple to understand. And the fact that I break it down so easy, it's a piece that we can then have. It's on my website. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. It's the Health Matters podcast. That people can go in and just pick a topic and go, okay, I'm going to listen to that. And the fact that they're so short and so precise is why we wanted to do them.
So, with your podcast, I think that's an awesome way to explain those results and have that resource always available so that, evergreen content, if you will, to be able to always say, okay, here's the background, here's the information, here's the education. Because the education piece, like you said earlier, it helps the buy-in so much. And so to have that already done, and then you can just shoot them an email when they have a question and say, yeah, that's a great question. Watch videos 7 and 8 and you're done. That's great.
You got it. Yeah, it's perfect. It's great to have. And the analytics have been great on them, but they're a piece of authority to a degree. Like you said, they're evergreen. So,
well, and especially, again, you're running so many tests every day, day after day, to be able to leverage that type of content. And I don't have to spend the time explaining this every time. I can just point them to this resource.
Right.
And then it actually saves you time in the business. And then I can test another person.
Yeah, you probably found that you were having not always the same, but very similar conversations hundreds of times a day.
Yes. I'm like, I say episode 3 is energy systems, episode 4 is zone 2, episode 9 is sports nutrition. I'm like, listen to them 3, you'll be fine.
Exactly. I found the same thing. We actually created an entire course in our business because we kept saying the same things to every patient. So we're like, let's just turn this into a course and sell it. So that's one of the things that we did, because it's like we're saying the same thing over and over again to every single patient, and with nuances for their situation, obviously. But yeah, I think that's a brilliant way. And like you said, it builds authority and helps people get to know you and your style and all those things. So evergreen content, because the technology and the science behind it doesn't change, despite the fact that that we see so many trends in fitness and things like that. How do you battle fitness trends and different information that comes out?
Because they're fitness trends, aren't they? Fitness trends don't change science. So it just goes back. It just goes back to the drawing board. Everything comes back to science at the end of the day. And I think fitness trends, the likes of High Rocks, as an example, like I've never been busier with High Rocks athletes. Every weekend between now and the end of October, we're in a different High Rocks gym. And all the High Rocks athletes want to get better and they want to push on. But a lot of the athletes that train or perform High Rocks are full-time parents with full-time jobs, so they need to optimize their performance. So trends come and go, but science doesn't, and it's not going to change it. I love High Rocks as a trend because we are so busy with it. Like, it's ridiculous.
That's awesome. What about, trends in the science? So like a couple of years ago, HIIT training came on super big, and like HIIT training's all you have to do. It's the best thing ever, blah, blah, blah. And now zone 2 training's kind of coming back in vogue, but then there's people fighting against it. How do you deal with those types of trends, with the science trends?
Which, look, they're trends, aren't they? I think that's the problem. If you understand science and you understand physiology, no matter what causes the trend to occur, if you can go, well, HIIT training is not necessarily going to grow aerobic capacity, and this is why. If you're confident in understanding that aspect of it, I don't think that there's ever going to be an issue,
Yeah, agreed. It's just, we get challenged on things all the time, but like, haven't you seen the research on HIIT training? And it's like, yeah, and it has a role, but it's not the end all be all. You still have to have a big enough base for any of that other stuff to matter, and all of those types of things, and the science just stands by itself.
I think because of what the equipment gives us, it gives us stats and data and science that regardless of what trend is out there, the information is still invaluable to apply it with whatever trend is happening. So we still need to know threshold to do HIIT. We still need to know threshold to do low intensity. We still need to do threshold to do zone 2. We still need to understand RMR to manipulate body composition. Now, if you want to manipulate body composition through keto or carnivore, it doesn't really matter if we know what your RMR is. So the baseline parameters that the KORR equipment measures is going to be the parameters that is going to affect humans forever. So the trends aren't going to change what we deliver. We just need to maybe interpret our data a bit better to make people like the sound of what we're saying. That's fine.
So speaking of that, right now it's very on trend to do lactate testing. How do you address that when people are like, do you do lactate testing as well, or do you?
It's something that we do. It's something we heard every day. When I started the company, I didn't do it. I lecture a good bit on a couple of sports science and exercise physiology courses where I became friendly with one of the other lecturers, and he was saying, well, why don't we get lactate going for you? And basically it's a whole lot of extra work to identify very, very, very similar thresholds. So I decided against doing it. I think, and this is an opinion, lactic acid is something that is talked about, and it will forever be talked about, and we're never going to get away from it. But it's up to me to say to someone, well, why do you want to get lactate done? Tell me. And they'll be like, oh, so I get my zones. And I'm like, yeah, but I just do it this way and that way. And some people want it, which is fine. I've no issue with it. If you want to go get it done, obviously the upgrade on the 2.0s has allowed you to bring in the lactate data to bring it into the curves and stuff, but I don't think I'll ever do it. I think it's more hassle for what it's worth, and I think the advancement in technology with the machinery, it's identifying the exact same point to do the exact same job.
It comforts me to hear you give almost the exact same answer that I give people. It's like, it's just not worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? It just, yeah. It's a lot more work. I'm going to have to charge you more for it because it's a lot more effort and supplies and things. And in the end, I get basically the same data points.
But even that, like, for me, like, the client will need to be in the room an hour prior to testing. It's more time for them. People doing it outside on a rainy, windy track where they're squeezing their own finger. I'm like, come on, like, that is not going to be accurate data. And then they go to a lab 6 months later and it flows naturally out of the ear and it's done really well and the readings are way off and people are like, well, why is it so different? I'm like, yeah, because the circumstances are different, So it's no, I don't think I'll ever get away from it. And like that, I think lactate can be a bit of a buzz. People are like, oh, I'm not going to test it this year. I'm going to do lactate. I'm like, all right, no problem. You do whatever you want to do, you know?
Yeah. So one other trend is that trend of field testing. So we see a lot of devices hitting the market right now that do field testing versus laboratory testing. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's in the name, isn't it? Like, you're not going to have a one-use filter on a mask where you're running around the field. Surely it's not going to give you the level of accuracy and the detail. So I will have no interest in jumping into a field testing device that you do yourself. I think our units are far more accurate, far more reliable, and that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, well, and that's I agree with you there. One of the things too, field testing, most devices, especially those devices, the CardioCoach has a much longer calibration window that it stays calibrated before drift, and even in the long form testing mode, you can test for as long as you need to. Whereas most devices, especially portable devices, their calibration window is like 15 to 25 minutes. And so before you start seeing major O2 drift. And so it's like, how good is a field test if it's only 15 minutes long? You're not putting it on a sports team for only 15 minutes before you have to stop everybody, recalibrate, and then get going again. And so to me, you're only testing the conditions of that day, of that very specific situation. So extrapolating from there,
It's going to be difficult. Yeah, there's too many variables involved. It's not really going to be ideal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. It's always, I'm self-validating through you.
It's all right, man. You do that.
But I think it goes back to what you were talking about is understanding physiology, getting the right data, and then using that to help the clients. I love what you said, that fitness trends don't change people. What changes is exactly what you mentioned. Getting their information and collecting it accurately, and then educating them on what it is, why it matters, and then how you can use this data to actually change their life. And then they go and implement it. I think that's the problem. Is it's from what we get in a lot of the stuff that's out there, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever. It's education with no context and no data behind it. And so it's like, well, does this even apply to me? Is this even is that going to help my training match my goals? That's one of the big complaints that we have is does your training match your goals? And as you mentioned, it's like, am I training for high rocks? Am I training for longevity? Am I training for hypertrophy? There's so many different goals, and this data really helps us match the training to those goals. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's so cool what you're doing. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Like, this is just always so fun for us. And, Cameron and I can talk for forever, but it's so fun to get your perspective. And again, you've done so many, 25,000 tests is just unreal.
It's
right?
amazing.
It would be interesting to see like how many tests have the top, 5 users of CardioCoach done all together. I'm sure that you still blow things out of the water. So it's just
the highest score I've ever got, an 89.3.
Oh
wow.
That must have been fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah, but like it's funny. Like I probably haven't done an 80, and I probably count on two hands how many 80s I've done in 14 years. So an 89.3. He ran a 14-minute 5K.
Wow. Isn't that fun when you get those elite athletes in? I once had a firefighter that was a fire jumper. So he jumped out of airplanes and fought fires on mountainsides and things. And he was going at a 25% grade at 5 miles an hour and was still walking. Wasn't even jogging yet. And I was like, dude, you are a machine. And he's like, I normally do this with a huge pack on and an axe in my hand. Like, this is kind of no big deal in comparison. And it was, it's just wild.
Yeah, you get runners in like that. And what I always say is good athletes have good data. And you look at like the ventilation curves, the RER values, the VO2 values, the low heart rate or the better recovery. And no matter what it is, if it's a good athlete, they've good data. And when you get mediocre athletes in that think they're good, they're not. And you see it in the data. Like, the data doesn't lie. So when you have serious athletes, like the world champion of high rock, Sean Noble, he's an Irish fella who's trying to compete with this elite 15. He has a full-time job. He's a sponsored athlete of mine, and he came in there a couple of weeks ago, and he's 82 kilos, 83 kilos, big, a lot of muscle, but like he scored a 77 VO2 max. His threshold didn't come in till like 15 or 16 minutes into the test, where we was running like a 3:30 kilometer, like phenomenal athletes. And you're just thinking, this is what you're here for, like we get some real good athletes. We had a female athlete in that scored a 67. The best female athlete. I've done it the same day, but what was really interesting about her is she's a full-time coach. She's a PT. She trains herself 14 times a week, and wasn't really giving us a lot. It was like, how are you? She's fine. She's no menstrual cycle. She thought that was okay. And I was like, what? Of course you've no menstrual cycle. You're deep in reds. So she's actually now working with us on a 1-to-1 6-week coaching program for performance nutrition, where we're going to really try and educate her around her fueling. We did her metabolic, we did her VO2, and we have real data now. And that's where working with anybody and everybody using the KORR equipment is going to be what's going to give us that success with our clients. So yeah, look, every day I smile. Every day I'm happy with what I do. Every day is a new day, and I'm never, ever, ever, ever bored of having a new client in front of me. So it's a pleasure to do what I do,
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome.
So one last question, and you touched on this earlier, but if there's someone that's unsure about testing, unsure if this is for them, what would you say to them?
Just call me and I'll tell you. If you're unsure, like, why are you unsure? You're not going to walk away with anything that's not going to have made you more aware of your physiological health and well-being. There's no negative in testing. There's none. Like there's no downside to learning more about your body, and you'll be really, really surprised just at how much detail you can understand and learn about yourself. But you're not only going to learn it about yourself, you're going to learn how to apply it. And once you know how to apply it, then it's going to have a positive impact on the rest of your life.
That's awesome. So how does somebody find you if they're in your area? So Ireland, how far do you travel to go and test people?
Anywhere. We travel everywhere and anywhere. We'll go. Ireland's a relatively small country. I could probably drive anywhere in the country between 4 to 4.5 hours. We travel everywhere. So mainly we're a Dublin-based company, so I'm in the city centre. I'm on the main highway, so to speak. You can get to me at any time. We operate 6 days a week. We do 8 to 8 Monday to Thursday, 8 to 6 Friday, Saturday, and then we do weekends for our clubs and stuff like that. But the easiest way to find me is just on our website, which is just myhealthmatters.ie, or else my number is up there as well. So if you send me an email, I'm just going to tell you to send me your number because I'm going to ring you. So it's nice. I rather speak to people rather than email to people.
So if you're a business, if you're, want to test your team or whatever, anywhere in the world, call Sean and make
anywhere in the world. We've had interest in, there's talk of me going over to Abu Dhabi. I've worked over in England. I've clients flying in from Finland, Spain, just to come in to me. Like, we've international customers that come in specifically to me. So, but if you want me to travel, we need to make sure it's right, though. I ain't going to travel if it's not right.
Absolutely.
I will travel. But yeah, there's talk of me being a guest tester over in like Australia, Abu Dhabi. There's some big things in the pipeline for Sean Kinane, I tell you.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure that wouldn't be inexpensive, but at the same time, you get the man, the pro at doing this. So
that's it. You don't pay for that test. You pay for my experience, and that's what comes with it,
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's worth a ton.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to spend with us today. This has been so fun, and it's just cool to see how you've utilized this in your business, and as you mentioned, how you've used it to change people's lives. And I love what you said, right? There's lots in the pipeline, some good things in the future for Sean Kinane. So I think that's so cool. Well, fantastic. Then everyone who's watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. As always, remember to like, follow, and subscribe for more content like this. Go find Sean on Instagram. Go find him on his podcast. I'm sure that's on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., all that stuff.
Yep, and we'll link his information in the details below too.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time. This podcast is a production of KORR Medical Technologies. Ready to take your metabolic testing to the next level? Visit KORR.com to learn more about purchasing our metabolic test equipment.